So welcome everyone again. And the topic for our discussion today is three forms of reality. Today we're going to discuss two important topics. One is reality and the other one is form. We're going to discuss what is reality, and also we're going to discuss what are the different forms of that reality. Reality is the substratum of the universe. It is the underlying reality of all the objects and our inner self. There are no two realities. There's only one reality. A lot of people may have the impression there's a reality of the objects in the world out there, and there's one reality of our inner self. But actually, there's only one universe and only one reality. So there's only one reality, and everything in this universe depends upon this reality. We will be discussing what the reality shortly. Logically, you would think that if there's one reality, there would be one form. No, one reality can have many different forms. For example, you take the example of H2O. H2O comes in different forms. It can come as a liquid, which we call water. It can come as a solid, which we call ice. It can come as gaseous, which we call vapor. So the underlying reality of all these three different forms is H2O. So H2O is the reality of these three different forms. So you can see reality is the same out H2O, but it can come in many different forms. The same way, the reality of this universe is one, but it can come in different forms. And we will be discussing those forms shortly. It's very interesting to note that a Bible already has talks about three different forms. If you have know a little bit of the Bible, you must have heard about the statement of Holy Trinity, in which they talk about the three different forms: the Holy Spirit, Father, and Son. So these are the three different forms which is indicated in the Bible there. But if you read the commentaries and the Bible, you find no details about what is the reality which is common among these three forms. There are three forms: Holy Spirit, Father, and Son. What is the reality which connects these three different forms? Very little is known in the Bible. And also, obviously, the three forms have to be different. Excuse me, can you just, Maya, maybe you can mute everyone and unmute me, that may be easier. You heard me, Maya? Maya, can you hear me? Maya, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you mute everyone and then unmute me? You mute everyone and then I'll unmute myself, because people are talking. I'm getting disturbed a bit.
Yeah, okay.
I'm
so you
unmuted.
can unmute yourself now.
I've unmuted myself, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So there are three different forms, and each form must be different. They cannot be the same form. If the forms are the same, obviously you can't say there are three different forms. But what's very interesting out here, the Bible does support the three forms of reality. So the question which you're going to answer today, what is that one reality which is common to the three forms? The answer to that is awareness. Awareness is the only reality in this universe. And just to give you a gist of awareness, are you aware right now? The answer, I'm sure, has to be yes. You're aware of my presentation to you. You're aware of the mobile device or laptop in front of you. You are aware of the surroundings around you. So that's the awareness we're going to discuss. That's the awareness which is the underlying reality of the universe. And this reality or this awareness, it comes in three different forms. It comes as self-awareness, it comes as reflected awareness, and refracted awareness. These terms may look quite vague at the moment, but we will discuss them and clarify what exactly we mean by self-awareness, reflected awareness, and refracted awareness. To get the ball rolling, to compare what Vedanta says in Bible, self-awareness is one form of reality. In Vedanta, we call that Brahman. In the Bible, we call it Bible is called it the Holy Spirit. A reflected awareness, in Vedanta, we call that Ishvara. In the Bible, it's called the Father. And the last form is refracted awareness, which is in Vedanta, you could name it as Guru. And the Bible, you can call it the Son, basically. You can see the connection between the three forms of the Bible and the Vedanta. They're talking the same language out here. So let's talk about understanding reality. That's a very important subject. So to understand reality, we need to understand awareness. To understand awareness, you need to investigate experiences. Experiences are happening right from the beginning, right till you get up in the morning, till you go to sleep. And in fact, in your dream state also, you have experiences there. So all the experiences must only happen in your mind. It cannot happen outside. The experiences, all the experiences which you have in the mind are all happening in the mind. And there are continuous sources of experiences. Experiences keep changing every day. God knows how many experiences everyone has, but it's a continuous source of experiences you have. If you decode experiences, you can make out experiences must have two distinct components. It must have awareness and it must have a form. Awareness is a very important ingredient of experience. Each one of us are aware of all our experiences. If you have an experience in your mind, you must be aware of it. You cannot say, I had an experience today, but I was not aware of it. So awareness is a prerequisite, important ingredient of experiences. So without awareness, you will not have experience. If there was no awareness, you will have no experience at all. So awareness is a very important ingredient and component of experience there. The second component of experience is the form. The form is superimposed on this awareness to complete the experience. And the form, where do the forms come from? The form comes from the five senses we have. It comes from your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the skin. The five senses we have, five sense organs we have. Those five sense organ interacts with the world out there and bring those inputs into your mind. And that form is then superimposed on awareness to complete the experience there. So, so awareness is the same. You have awareness in your mind. I have awareness in my mind. Every living being has awareness. If they have a mind, they definitely have awareness inbuilt in the mind. So you notice something out here. The forms are coming from the outside source. They're coming from outdoors, through the five senses. But awareness is already present in every mind. So the awareness is already an ingredient of the mind, basically. So it's very important to understand that awareness is already present in every mind. So it's very important to understand, what is this awareness? What do you mean by awareness? What are the ingredients of awareness? What is awareness made of? If you think about it, awareness must have three different components. It must have a subject, it must have intelligence, and it must have an object. Just like water has two molecules of hydrogen and one molecule of oxygen, the same way, the awareness must have subject, intelligence, and object. The moment you mix up two molecules of hydrogen with oxygen, you get water. The same way, if you mix up a subject with intelligence and object together, awareness is generated, basically. So awareness has three different ingredients out here: subject, object, and intelligence. So awareness, there must be a subject who's aware of the experience. The subject is a knower of the awareness. So awareness is like a witness who watches what is happening in the mind. So that's what is called a subject, and who's aware of the experience. And the subject is a knower of the experience. He knows what the experience is. So he is a knower part of awareness. Then there must be objects, which must be experienced. This object is the known part of awareness. Then lastly, there must be intelligence, by which the subject gets to know the object. Intelligence is the knowing part of awareness. So all these three ingredients, subject, object, and intelligence, are not something which are hanging around in the universe. They are part and parcel of awareness as such. But if any one of those components are not present, you will not have awareness. For example, if there is no subject and you have a lot of objects around, but the subject is not there, you cannot have an awareness there, because there's no subject to watch the awareness. Or the other way around, if there is a subject, but there are no objects to be watched. So what happens there? There's no objects to watch. What will the subject see? So the object is an important and a must ingredient of awareness as such. Then there must be intelligence. For example, there may be a lot of subjects. There may be one subject, and there may be a lot of objects around the base. But if the subject doesn't know what the object is there will be no awareness as such. So the intelligence part is a knowing part. So you can see that all three ingredients are a must to be part of awareness. So wherever there is awareness, right now, if you're aware of my talking to you, it has a subject in that who's listening to my talk. There is a object which is my talk, my words, my sentences, and then there is intelligence in that awareness, which is decoding that intelligence to let you know what I'm talking about. So these three ingredients are a must to be part of any awareness as such. So just summarize again, awareness must have these three components: a subject, object, and intelligence. So whenever these three combine together, you will get awareness basically. And these three subjects also has a power of awareness. There's a power of the knower, which is equivalent to this power within the subject. There's a power of the known, which is a power within the objects. And there's a power of knowing, which is the power of within the intelligence as such. We'll discuss these three powers in detail so you understand what are these three different powers which make up awareness as such. Let's start off with the power of the knower. When you see a tree, when we see a tree, the question can be asked, who is seeing the tree? When we listen to music, who is listening to the music? When you taste the sweetness of chocolate, the question can be asked, who is tasting that chocolate? There must be a witness within us, and this witness is a subject who is watching all this. The subject is the awareness, is a part of awareness, and it has the power of the knower inbuilt in that subject. Because there's only one subject. There are multiple subjects. There is only one subject, and this subject plays many different roles. When it's seeing the tree, it becomes the seer of the tree. When it is listening to music, it becomes a listener of the music. When it's tasting the chocolate, it becomes the taster of the chocolate. So you can see the subject is playing different roles. There's only one subject. It suddenly becomes a seer, then suddenly becomes a listener, and suddenly becomes a taster of chocolates. It could be a talker, it could be walker, it could be so many things you do every day. So there's one subject which does everything out there. So if you are hearing, you're the hearer of the music there. So you can see that the subject, there is only one subject, and it has the power of the knower by which it can adapt itself to become a listener, seer, or the taster of chocolate there. So that power is within subject, and it is part of awareness as such. This power of knower is within awareness itself. It's part of awareness. The second power, which is very important, is the power of the known. The power of known is related to objects as such. So this power of known doesn't create objects, but it becomes the objects which has been told to become. So it becomes, for example, just like a Play-Doh. If you have a Play-Doh, you can manipulate the Play-Doh to become any object. You can make the Play-Doh into a tree. You can make the Play-Doh into a house, a car. You can make the Play-Doh into so many different objects, basically. The same way, the awareness by itself is formless. It doesn't have any form. So that awareness can be manipulated by this power of known to become any object as such. For example, if your signal coming from your eyes is of a tree, that signal comes into the mind, and then the power of the known will manipulate awareness to take the shape of the tree. The signal is coming of a tree, so the power of the known will manipulate awareness to make that signal to become a tree as such. So when you project it out, you see a tree. The same way, if you're listening to music, uh, that power of what you call the known will manipulate awareness to make the sound of that music which is coming in through. So you can see the power of known has the ability to become any object as such. This power of known is unlimited, but we only have five senses. Our five senses are limited. So whatever we see and whatever we manipulate, the awareness is limited by the five sense organs. But the power of known is much wider, much bigger. It can be manipulated into anything and everything. But our five senses are limited. So the power we have of the known is limited as such. Lastly, we have the power of knowing, which is the intelligence part of the awareness as such. For example, if we I've given example one here, I'm the seer seeing the tree. I've made the sentence in such a way that you understand the different parts of the sentence as such. The ego out here would be I am, which is the ego part of it. The seer would be this subject, which is seeing the tree, and the tree out there is the object out here. And the seeing part is the what connects the tree to the seer, because the seer doesn't know what it is watching. It has to have some intelligence to tell you that you are watching a tree. So the seeing part, the power of seeing, has the intelligence by which you can decode that tree signal coming from the power of known, and it tells the seer you're watching a tree, basically. So you know you're watching the tree. So this is the power of seeing, and this power is within intelligence. You might say that the eyes may provide this power. The eyes doesn't do anything. The eye will take the signal into the mind, and then what happens in the mind? Who tells that this is a tree what you're watching? So there's a power of seeing within awareness, which will tell the seer that you are watching the tree. The same way, the second example out here is very similar. I'm the listener listening to the music. So here the ego is I am, the subject is the listener to the music, the object is the music, and then the power which is there, which is called the power of listening, which will decode that music coming from the object and tell the listener you're listening to a Lata Mangeshkar song or any other song. So it will tell you the music, it will add the intelligence to the music as such. So you can see the intelligence part is what connects the object to the subject. And this power of knowing is also very, very powerful. It has all the possible power, the power of listening, the power of talking, the power of thinking, the power of seeing, the power of understanding. You can name it, go on and on. All these powers are part of the power of knowing, and it is part of awareness there. So you can see that awareness is the powers within awareness extremely powerful. There is only one reality in this universe, which is the what you call is awareness is the only reality, and this awareness is the substratum of the universe. Everything in the universe is made of awareness itself. Everything is dependent on awareness. Your inner core, the subject part of it, is dependent on. We just showed the subject is part of awareness, and the objects out there are all made up of awareness itself. Because I just mentioned to you that the signal coming from the external sources, when you add awareness to that, you get the experience there. So everything in this universe is only built of awareness. Awareness is the only reality in the universe. Everything and anything is built around awareness. And the powers within awareness is awesome. It's all encompassing. Everything which is in the universe is the powers are within awareness itself. For example, the power of the knower, the ability to become any subject, the power of the known, which can ability to become any object. It can become the power of knowing. All the intelligence which are there is all within intelligence. Besides that, it's not part of this session out here, but the infinite energy is also a power within awareness itself. And time is generated and created by this power itself out here. We're not covering that part of the subject out here, but the source for infinite energy of the universe is not out there. All that energy of the infinite energy is within awareness itself. And the time which is created is also within awareness itself. So anything and everything, all the possible powers which are there in this universe are all within awareness itself. And that awareness is the only reality of this universe there. Everything in this universe depends on that power. Even the space which you see outside is created by that power itself. All the energy there is created by awareness itself. All the intelligence is created by awareness itself. So you can see that there's only one entity in this universe which is the substratum of anything and everything, and that is awareness itself. And this awareness comes in three different forms. It comes as self-awareness, which we call, the name given to that is Brahman. It is also called, there's also another form called reflected awareness, which you can call as Ishvara. Some people might call this as God also. And lastly, there's a third form of this awareness can take shape. It's called refracted awareness. And we call that the Guru, basically. So let's try to discuss these three different forms. Let's start off with understanding self-awareness, which the name given in Vedanta for self-awareness is Brahman. And some people might also call it Satchitananda. So what is self-awareness? If you think about it, there must be a self who can say, I'm aware. So awareness is there, but there must be someone who can say, I'm aware. So that I part of it, in that awareness part of it, is the self basically. And the self is a part of within awareness as such. But when you say self-awareness, what does self-awareness mean? So the self is aware of self. So that's what self-awareness would really mean, that the self knows itself as a self. So the sentence you can build from self-awareness is self is aware of the self. There's something similar sentence we just discussed. I'm seeing the tree, or the seer is seeing the tree. It's a very similar sentence out here, where here the self is the subject and self is also the object. So you notice out here, the self is the subject and the self is the object. So there is no duality out here. It is non-dual because the object and the subject are one homogeneous unit there. It's not easy to understand any entity in which the subject is equal to object. That's why Vedanta always says describing self-awareness is almost indescribable. How do you describe something in which the subject and object are the same, basically? You can only imagine that there's something entity out here in which the subject and the object are one unit, and it is non-dual, because self-awareness means self is aware of the self. Your self is also the subject and self is also the object. That's why they call Brahman non-dual, because the subject and object are one unit as such. They are homogeneous, they're partless, there are no different parts, there's only one unit. Even the intelligence part is built into this self-awareness. The self is equal to object, is equal to subject, is equal to intelligence. And the three powers are all one power, which is power of knower is equal to the power of known, which is equal to the power of knowing. So that what is built into self-awareness. In self-awareness, it is only one entity in which there is the subject, object, intelligence are one unit there. It's not easy to describe this. We can always imagine that there's an entity in which the subject, object, and intelligence are one unit, and the three powers which are described, the power of known is the same as the power of known, and the same as the power of knowing. So it's one entity there. But it's very important to understand, it may seem there are three different, there's only one entity, but those three powers are inbuilt in that entity itself. So there is actually a power of knower within self-awareness, there is a power of known, and there is a power of knowing, but they are all the same. So it is not easy to, but that's what they say that in Vedanta, to describe and understand self-awareness is not easy, but you just have to imagine that these three powers are there, but they have become one unit there. So you must imagine an entity in which the subject is equal to object, this full and complete. It has all the three different parts. Once you have all the three different parts within self-awareness, what happens? It generates its own awareness. It's like a factory creating awareness, basically, because it really has the power of known, it has the power of known, it has the power of knowing. And when you combine them together, you get awareness there. So this self-awareness is like a factory generating its own awareness as such. But it is one unit, but it is in a way generating its own self-awareness, own awareness. So there's like you can imagine self-awareness like a bulb shining awareness, is radiating awareness. It is, and that's what it does. It does nothing else except radiating awareness. That's what self-awareness means. It is like a bulb. It doesn't do anything except it generates awareness and it radiates awareness. It shines awareness. So anything which comes in contact with that awareness, you have an experience as such. So that self-awareness is what is called Satchitananda or Brahman. So this self-awareness is something like a bulb which is shining on a continuous basis, and it does nothing. It is at full, complete. It doesn't need anything because it's generating its awareness, and it is self-shining basically. So let's talk about now reflected awareness. which you can name as Ishvara. To understand Ishvara, you need to understand ignorance basically. So ignorance becomes a prerequisite to understand Ishvara as such. We have understood Brahman, what it is. We need to understand Ishvara now. We have seen this now in self-awareness, subject is equal to object and object is equal to subject. So there's one entity, non-dual there. If that is our inner core, why don't we know this? Why have we forgotten that we are subject is equal to object? Why we forgotten that we are self-aware, in which we are both the subject and we are the object also? Why don't we know this? We don't know this because we are forgotten our true nature. And moment you forget your true nature, what happens? Ignorance pops up. Ignorance pops up when you forget something, ignorance pops up. And when this ignorance pops up, what it does? It separates the subject and object. It creates duality. We forget we are non-dual. When we forget we are both the subject and object, this ignorance causes the separation of subject and object. So moment you forget that you are non-dual, you forget that you are both the subject and you are the object, then what happens? Ignorance pops up, and with the ignorance popping up, there becomes a separation of the subject and object. The non-duality becomes duality, and the subject becomes in here and the objects become out there. So duality is created basically. So ignorance is the source of creating duality. It is very strange, but ignorance has that power to break up what you call non-dual Brahman into duality basically. Just simple ignorance of forgetting our nature, true nature. Ignorance pops up, and moment ignorance pops up, the subject and object, which were one entity, becomes two different entities. So ignorance has that power of separating non-dual Brahman into duality when we have subject within us and object out there. There also is a term called pixel of ignorance. Let's try to understand what do we mean pixel of ignorance. Ignorance is, if you take any topic, there's a profile of ignorance. You can think about a profile of ignorance. Every topic you can think about has a profile. There are some people who have 100% knowledge, or they have zero ignorance on that subject, and there are other people who have 100% ignorance as such. So, for example, you take Chinese there. There may be some people who have 100% ignorance. They have no clue what Chinese is about. And then there are some people who may have 100% knowledge or zero ignorance about Chinese. They know anything and everything about ignorance. And then there are all the rest of the people who fall in the profile from 100% to 0%. The same way, if we take a topic like maths, there'll be people who are brilliant. They have all the knowledge about maths, so they'll have zero ignorance on the subject. And then there could be some people who are totally ignorant of maths, so they have 100% ignorance. So you can see everyone in this living being will have some sort of profile in which he will fit either in the 100% ignorance or 0% ignorance. And most people will fit somewhere in between this percentage. So every topic that way has a profile basically. So from 100% ignorance to 0% ignorance or 100% knowledge. So everyone fits into one profile. You take maths, you take Chinese, you take computer science, you take any different topic, even understanding your own self, which is self-awareness. There again, people will have a range, will fit into a range from 10% to 100%. A person who is self-realized will have no ignorance, and the person who is totally ignorant of his own self will be having 100% ignorance. So they'll have a profile there. So if you combine all these profiles together, you can have one profile of ignorance basically, where you can then divide that profile into small pixels. And so each pixel, each small unit will have, you can call it like a pixel of ignorance. And that pixel of ignorance will have its own profile of ignorance and knowledge on different topics basically, including self-awareness. So you have a pixel of ignorance, I have a pixel of ignorance, because our profiles could be different, because our knowledge about different topics are different. So basing on our knowledge of what we have or ignorance we have of different topics, each one has a pixel of ignorance basically. So every living being has a pixel of ignorance. So that pixel of ignorance is what we carry within us as such. So the pixel of ignorance in which we have a range of knowledge on subjects and ignorance of subjects, we have a unique profile within us, and that profile is stored in the pixel of ignorance. And each one of us has that pixel of ignorance, and each one has that ignorance depending on their level of knowledge and ignorance on different topics as such. But the most important is the knowledge about self-awareness. So there again, each one of us will have a different profile. Some people are more aware of their self. They understand more about the self. And there are some people who understand less. And there are people who are self-realized. So they have no ignorance. They have 100% knowledge about the self-awareness. So each one of us fits into a different scale, a different location in that profile. So that profile is stored within your pixel of ignorance. And the pixel of ignorance keeps changing. The moment you have knowledge, that pixel of ignorance will keep changing. And so it is not that it is a static pixel of ignorance. It is being updated on a regular basis. As profile changes, your pixel of ignorance will also change. Now that we understood the ignorance, so what happens is that ignorance is like covering up your self-awareness, because you are ignorant of your self-aware of your bulb of awareness. So the ignorance pops up and it is covering that bulb which is shining ignorance there. So that bulb which is shining ignorance, which is shining awareness, that awareness gets reflected on ignorance basically. Just like you have a mirror and you have a sun. So you have a sun reflecting on the mirror. So what do you see? We have the original sun out there, and then you also have a reflected sun on the mirror basically. So there are actually, in fact, there's only one sun, but there's a reflected sun also basically coming about, which is dependent on that sun there. In the same way, when the light of awareness shines on this ignorance, it gets reflected on top of that ignorance basically. And then you have the bulb of awareness, and you also have reflected awareness, and which is reflected on ignorance as such. That reflected awareness is Ishvara. So Ishvara is caused by the ignorance we have about our true nature. So we'll discuss this a little bit more detail to explain that in a little more detail. But for right now, Ishvara is created in a way because of our ignorance as such. So we saw that in self-awareness, the self is equal to object, object is equal to subject, and subject is equal to intelligence. There's all one entity there, and the power of knower is equal to the power of known, and equal to the power of knowing. But we also seen that ignorance creates duality. So when duality is created, all the three powers, which were one homogeneous unit, they pop up in reflected awareness as separate units as such. So they're not anymore as one unit, because duality is created. And moment duality is created, there's a separation of the subject and object. And when you separate the subject and object, even the powers get separated out. So the power of known becomes really the power of known by itself. The power of known becomes by itself, and the power of knowing also hangs around by itself. All this is within Ishvara there. So the Ishvara has three different powers which are now functional in the way you can call it. It has been functional because of our ignorance, and because of ignorance creates duality, and because duality is created, those three different powers which were one unit become three different distinct powers. So that's what is called Maya Shakti. There's a term which is used quite often in Vedanta. It's called Maya Shakti. It has the three powers which are not equal to now. First, it was power of knower equal to the power of known equal to power here. It is plus power of knower plus the power of known plus the power of known. So three different powers become three different units as such. The three powers are separated within Ishvara now. And this three powers is what is called Maya Shakti, and Ishvara wields this power now. Within Brahman, these three powers were all one unit. Brahman did nothing except shining awareness. But Ishvara, these three powers are popping out, and it has the control of these three powers now. So Ishvara is, they say, is the controller of the power of knower, the power of known, and the power of knowing. So let's try to understand the difference between Brahman and Ishvara at this stage. It's very important to understand that. And Brahman is Nirguna. They said Brahman has got no qualities, no attributes. That's because the subject is equal to object and object is equal to intelligence. It is one homogeneous part without any attributes. So the reason it doesn't have, because subject is equal to object, it doesn't have any gunas at all. It doesn't have any qualities, nirguna. It is partless, formless, and homogeneous. Like I mentioned earlier, it's not easy to describe these nirguna and how it works basically. Ishvara is saguna. It has the qualities and attributes. It has the Maya Shakti and all the three different powers. So Ishvara is something which is has the powers of the three powers which I mentioned, the power of the knower. So the question out here is that it's very important to understand ignorance is the cause for Ishvara. It may sound strange to a lot of people, but our ignorance of our own self is the cause for Ishvara. If there was no ignorance, there would be no Ishvara, there would be only self-awareness, there would only be Brahman. Because of our ignorance, Ishvara is created basically. And if you notice the diagram before, a pixel of ignorance. So you have a pixel of ignorance, I have a pixel of ignorance. Recording is stopped. Can you? Okay, yeah, okay, take. Sorry. So Ishvara remains pure and complete, just like water in the red bottle. So each pixel has reflected awareness. So the God or Ishvara is so close to us. It's within our pixel of ignorance. We have a full Ishvara, and Ishvara with all the three powers are within our pixel of ignorance as such. So you can imagine ignorance to have two sides. One is the input side and one is the output side. The input side where the reflection takes place. So the Ishvara is in the input side of the pixel of ignorance as such. Let's talk about now that we have fully understood the difference between Brahman and we understood the Ishvara, we have understood the powers which are inbuilt in Ishvara. Let's talk about the refracted awareness now. So refraction of awareness is what happens is that the reflected awareness, reflected Ishvara, our awareness is on the input side, and we have ignorance within the pixel of ignorance has ignorance there. So that pixel of ignorance refracts the four different components of the of what you call awareness as such. The awareness has got object, subject, intelligent, and if you can include the self also, basically, if it is self-awareness, it is equal to object plus subject plus intelligence. So these three different parts become three different components, and that is like refraction. Just like when you pass light through a prism, the light breaks up into 7 different colors: violet, indigo, vibgyor, blue, yellow, all the 7 different colors. The same way, when the reflected awareness goes through the pixel of ignorance, it breaks up into 4 different components there. So 4 different components which make up a mind are called Sakshi, which is the home of the subject; Manas, which is the home of the object; Buddhi, which is the home of intelligence as such; and Ahamkara is the home of ego. So there are 4 different components which are coming through the reflected awareness. Then when it passes through the pixel of ignorance, it breaks up into 4 different components which constitute the mind. In the mind, these 4 different components, Sakshi, Manas, Buddhi, Ahamkara, are in a way sitting in different departments there. So whenever these combine together, you generate awareness. When the Sakshi, the subject, combines with the object, and when it combines with the intelligence, you generate awareness in the mind itself. That's how the awareness is created in the mind. When the subject, object, and intelligence are combined together, when you combine these together, you get intelligence basically. So that's how you have awareness within each mind as such. But now, where does the guru stand now? Understanding the true guru. Guru is a term which has been used so loosely these days, you can call anyone and everyone a guru, but that's not the guru we are talking about. We are talking about a guru who is completely self-realized, who has no ignorance. He understands that he is part of self-awareness. He's not part of the mind because he doesn't have a mind, because he has no ignorance. If he has no ignorance, he has no mind as such, basically. But the understanding a guru can be sometimes be tricky, because to all of us, someone might say, I'm a guru, I'm self-realized, and he appears to be have a human body and a mind. He seems to be active and functioning in the world. So it's not very easy to identify and locate a guru who's really a true guru. But according to the guru, he knows that he has no ignorance. If he has no ignorance, he has no ego. And if he has no ego and no ignorance, what happens? If he has no ignorance, means he is merged into awareness. That's, if he has no ignorance, you are just self-awareness. Because if self-awareness and ignorance are only two components there, if there's no ignorance, you are merged into self-awareness as such. So he knows, he perceives the self in every object, because he sees everything, because in the self is the subject and object are the same. So when he sees the universe, a guru, a true guru, he will see the self in every object. He may see the world through his eyes like we do, but then he doesn't see duality. He doesn't see a subject out there, an subject within us, and an object out there. He sees himself in everything. So he is what a true guru would be. But to a normal person, it's very difficult to identify what a true guru would be, basically, because he behaves like he has a body and mind. He's still active in the mind. He's walking around. He's eating his food. He's sleeping. He does all the normal things. But from the guru's point of view, he is not doing anything. The body and mind is functioning like a robot, and they are doing their activity, what they're supposed to do. And he's a person who is just watching it, basically. So, and when he perceives the universe, he perceives the universe as part of himself, basically, because everything is part of awareness as such. So when he sees objects out there, he sees himself in all the objects, basically. And he lives in the world of awareness as such, because we all live in the world of forms. We are living in the form part of it. We are so active in the form. We are daily, we are living in the world of form. And we are, like I mentioned to you earlier, experience is made of is made of awareness plus form. So there are two different worlds. One is the world of the form, and one is the world of awareness. We live in the world of the form, most of us at least. The person who is self-aware, who is self-realized, he lives in the world of awareness. So he sees everything as part of awareness as such. So to conclude our talk today, so awareness is the only reality of the universe there. All the powers are reside within awareness. We just shown that all the different powers, the power of known, the power of knowing, the power of known, the infinite energy, time, all the possible powers which are there, all reside within awareness itself. And they come in three different forms. This reality, it comes as self-awareness of Brahman, which is the real true form of awareness. And ignorance is the cause for the creation of Ishvara and the human mind as such. So that concludes my talk. So I just wanted to introduce my book. It's called Science Meets Vedanta. And so basically it has 37 essays, and it has about 345 pages. The book is available on Amazon, Flipkart, and also Barnes and Noble online. And I'm happy to announce to everyone that Crosswords in India have decided to sell my book through all the major stores all over India now. They did some test marketing of the book in 2 stores, one in Pune and one in Mumbai, and they found the response to be pretty good. So now they've taken the book all around the country, basically. So all the major stores in India of Crosswords will be stocking my book, basically. And in Amazon, the book comes as a ebook, Kindle Unlimited, paperback, and hardcover. And my contact is giant@staminteractive.com. If you ever have any questions, you are pleased to contact me. And so I'll be more than happy to respond to any questions or queries you have. With that, I will now stop my presentation, and I will stop sharing my screen. And in case you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
In the chat room, there are no questions. So if anyone wants to ask questions, you can unmute yourself and ask.
Good evening, madam. I'm Somnath.
Yeah.
See, when you say Guru is almost, can we say synonymous with Atman, and ordinary people with ignorance are called as Jivis?
Yeah, you can say that. A guru would be same as a self-realized person, because he has Ishvara is not then present for him. It is either just he is self-aware basically. So he's in that category of awareness basically. But he has a body and mind which is temporary for this janam, and once he finishes his karmas of that body and mind, he will merge into, he's already merged into awareness, self-awareness. He will merge this. He will not have any other bodies in the future because he is self-aware.
Sir, this question, why I was asking, sir,
Yeah.
I purchased your book. I was going through, especially on the chapter on mind.
Yeah.
So somewhere you say, when you describe the part 2 of the mind, you say you call it as Atman, and then I get confused between Atman and Jiva. In the book, when I was going through, you say Atman is equal to so many equation you are given. But Atman and Jiva is individual. Individual person is called Jivis. There is only one Atma.
Yes.
For all this one.
I don't, have I used the word Atman?
I think you have used the word Atman in the.
Let me
read it. I have the book in front of me.
Okay, please.
If you have 2 minutes time, I will just say which page.
Okay, let me also get my book. 1 minute. That's what. 1 minute.
Yeah.
1 minute.
49.
Yeah, I'm back.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Functioning of the mind when you say activities in manner.
What page is it?
1 minute, I'll just use.
Functioning of the mind, yeah.
States of mind. That is page 63 under the waking state.
Yeah.
Waking state experience, page 64.
Yeah.
Page 64, when you explain about working state is equal to Atma, you call that Atma as Vishwa.
Yeah.
As causal bodies. Do we need to use the word Atma or Jiva?
See, the Atma is more, Jiva is a complete of this, all the different components make up Jiva basically. So Atma is more like a ego part of it basically. No? The Atma is the ego part of within that state basically. That ego part name changes. That's what Vedanta teaches. In the waking state, it's called the Vishwa. In the what you call dream state is called Taijasya. And in the deep state, the ego is called Pragna. So these are the actually name given to the ego part of it, because the ego is a different ego is functioning in the dream state, and a different ego is functioning in the deep sleep state sort of thing. So the jiva would be the waking state actually could be called jiva. Jiva is equal to the atma plus causal body plus subtle body plus gross body. So these different four components make up the waking state person basically as such, which could be jiva. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Because I was getting confused between Atma and Jiva, that's why.
Yeah. Jiva is a cumulative of Atma. In this case, Atma sometimes can use so many different ways in Vedanta, because it's got so many different locations. Out here, that Atma which I've used is more like a ego basically.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, there's a question from Haripriya Munipalli, and she says, what is the intelligence component of non-living things? What are the components of ignorance in non-living things?
Yeah. See, actually what happens is that the pixel of ignorance is got your ignorance basically inbuilt out there. And then you have what you call the power which is transmitted from the four different powers, which are, sorry, the three different powers: the power of knowing, the power of known, the power of what do you call knower. They also refract through the mind, and because your ignorance is there, and because of the ignorance, that power gets diluted basically. If your ignorance about a certain thing is low, that power will not be functioning that way in your mind. But for example, if you are a very skillful tennis player, and then that your skills in that level is good, and when that power goes through, that skill set is passed on to the next janam or next body you take basically. So this the powers and ignorance interact with each other, and depending on your profile of your ignorance, the effectiveness of the power will depend on that. If you are more self-realized, your power of knowing and all that will be much more better. And if someone is more ignorant, that power gets lost, because that the ignorance is covering the power much more denser. So it's more denser basically. Does that answer your question? If you want to unmute yourself, we can unmute and let me know.
No, I was asking what is actually the intelligence component in non-living things? Like there is a stone.
Okay, got it. So there's actually a lot of debate on this. The way I would look at it is that intelligence would have what do you call, there'll be so much ignorance that there will be no intelligence inbuilt, so that it doesn't go through sort of thing. So ignorance will cover it up, and so it cannot go through. But the other people may say that is there is no ego there, is that a living being or no? So that's again I'm not sure how to answer that, because it's a very does it have a mind, a stone? I don't know if it has a mind or no. It is creation of ignorance basically, because all the objects which are non-living come out of ignorance. It is built out of ignorance basically, because ignorance, if you see a stone, if you see any metal there, they all come out of ignorance. Ignorance is creates a form basically. The form part is all ignorance basically. So I'm not sure these objects have mind or no. What is your thing? You think they have a mind?
No, definitely they don't.
Yeah,
only living things have mind.
Yes, I think I also think so. But a lot of people, they do consider that these entities have a mind, but it is so full of ignorance that they are not active. But I don't think so. Basically, I think those living beings have a different what you call constitution, and the one which are non-living don't have. They are purely made of ignorance. Basically, they're created and constructed by ignorance, and we have.
So the subject and intelligent components are merged in them, and object is separated. Instead of three separate components, they have two separate components probably.
No, actually, the way I look at it, because there are two things. One is what you call living beings, and objects. Basically, objects are which are not living. They're totally made of ignorance. Because if you look at what I've explained to you, there are only two things in the universe. One is self-awareness and ignorance. There's nothing else in the universe. There are only two things are made. One is self-awareness and ignorance. And the pixel of ignorance creates egos. Basically, each mind is created by the pixel of ignorance basically. And what doesn't have a pixel of ignorance, and the pixel of ignorance has a profile of knowledge and ignorance of different subjects basically. And then there are non-living objects. They only are made of ignorance only. They're nothing but ignorance. So ignorance is the creation of all the different forms you see. The stone, the mountain.
But I believe that there is a component of subject in non-living things as well.
There could be. I don't know. It could be. It is possible, but I don't know. If they don't
because
have
there is no place. Because there is no place where there is no Brahman.
The Brahman is there, but see, Brahman is what is creating that. See, that one is ignorance. So the form part of it is all ignorance. So Brahman is within that stone. I'm not denying that, but the form part of the stone, if the stone doesn't have an ego, it doesn't have an ego at all.
Yeah.
It doesn't have an ego, so it can't be like it has a pixel of ignorance. Pixel of ignorance has a ego. It has a subject, object, inclusions, all four components in that pixel of ignorance basically. But the forms don't have that. That's what I think. So I may be wrong. I'm not saying that I'm an expert in that area, but I feel there's the form part doesn't have any ego, and it doesn't have any. It is just ignorance. That's all. That's
Okay,
right.
thank you,
Yeah.
Jayant, for
Yeah.
giving your perspective. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, the next question is from Satish Thatte.
Yeah.
And he says, what are the practical advantages of knowing these three realities and forms? How does this benefit us in our daily lives?
If you are leading a spiritual life, then the more you know about, a lot of people want to get closer to God. They always want to get closer to God. They want to know God. That's what you call a practical. A lot of people want to do that. The more you know about God, the closer you can go to God. That's what I believe in. Because if you have a God in which some people tell you vaguely here and there, oh, that is God, God is that, God is this, God is that, it doesn't convince you, and you feel very far away from God. But once you understand God properly, like right now I mentioned that God is dependent on ignorance, basically. So God is what is not your objective. Your objective is to go to self-awareness. Basically, you need to go directly to self-awareness. You're not going towards Ishvara as such, because Ishvara is a creation of our ignorance, basically. So the more you know about the subject, the closer you can reach your ultimate goal, basically. And the less you know, you'll be further away from your objective there. So that's only main advantage of understanding. More you understand, the more you'll know about the difference between Ishvara and difference between Brahman. You just like I mentioned just now, God is Ishvara is dependent on ignorance, basically. That is what is creating Ishvara as such. But if you understand that, you will try to go directly towards self-awareness. That's where you need to reach, basically, if you want to reach your final goal. Because you need to, the more, basically, to put it in a nutshell, the more you know, the more closer you get to things, basically. If you understand something more, you are closer to that object or subject. If you know more about science, quantum physics, you're closer to quantum physics. The same way, the more you know about the subject, you'll be closer to what you're trying to achieve. If your goal is to achieve happiness and self-awareness. Does that answer your question, Satish?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Then what's the role of Guru then?
Guru has come there to teach you, basically, because Guru is a self-realized person. This is not a Guru who's just a teacher in some school or some place. He is a person who's self-realized, basically. Like I mentioned earlier, it's very difficult to identify a Guru from seeing him from outside. You may say I'm self-realized, but you don't know if he's self-realized. He would know that he's self-realized. That's all. He's the only person he knows is self-realized. And it depends on how the Guru behaves, teaches, how he approaches life. That personally, one person I really admire is Ramana Maharshi. Was out of, not that I know many gurus and many people, but one person I truly believe he was self-realized. It was Ramana Maharshi, because the way he answers questions, the way he tells things to people, you can see that he is something extraordinary, sort of thing. So Guru's role is there to come and explain things to you, and he can direct you to go in that direction as such, basically. Yeah, does that answer you? Yeah.
No, also this is what Swamiji used to say to us, that if you have a teacher, I mean, not a self-realized guru, not everyone can be self-realized. So that teacher will take you to the level that he has gone. Then you might need to find someone else after that. This is what our Swamiji had said to us.
That's correct. That's correct. Because he can go up to what he can, and obviously he can teach. He can teach a lot of things. But to reach the ultimate goal, you need to have a person who's self-realized, who has experienced that self-realization, basically. Any other question, Maya? Or
yeah, there is Tapan Banerjee is asking if he can get a video of all the talks you've done so far, because he wasn't able to attend all the lectures. So
yeah, actually we have a YouTube channel. If you just type in YouTube my name, Jayant Kapatkar, with a KER, and then you'll see all the videos which are there, basically. So I upload all the videos which I created. I'm uploading that. This one also, after I finish, I will upload it by tomorrow as such. Okay, Tapan, you can just go to Google, you go to YouTube and type in my name. You'll see all the videos which I've created till now. Yeah.
There's no other questions. There's a gentleman called Somnath Tarikere who is saying that your book is excellent.
Okay,
There's
thank
no
you.
question.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, like I mentioned to you, the book is now available on in Crosswords in India now. You can go to any store and major stores. You will find my book there. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Maya, for hosting it. I really appreciate your, thank everyone who attended, who taking the time to attend. And hopefully I will do another webinar in the next 6 weeks or 1 to 8 weeks sometime.
Okay, thanks everyone for listening, and I hope it was helpful to you all. And so with this, we'll close the session and see you next time.
Thank you.